though I haven't met most of you. And Rekha and I haven't met face to face for a long time. And on my one and only visit to Hyderabad, which was so swamped, I wasn't able to manage to see her even then. But I hope that I will do at some point. I really want to share some professional points with you that I think contribute to everything that everybody is sharing on this meeting. I can actually say Rekha is one of my closest academic colleagues internationally, and it's because she's been part of some of the most important work that I have done in a truly international sense. And I think because we share a lot of values and actually quite a lot of our own professional identity, which has become clear over the more than 30 years since we met so long ago, that it's a distant memory now. But in terms of the work we've done, that's absolutely alive and inspiring me today. And I wanted to stress really what I've learned from looking at Rekha's example as a professional, and to say to you all, from a slightly different perspective, I think, of a number of you who've been her students, how much it's meant to me that the productive and meaningful nature of our collegiality has ethically expressed what it is to be a feminist in this world, in my view. That actually the personal as political is expressed in the amazing work that my colleagues around the world produce and share, importantly with their students as much as other researchers and with practitioners. So while I'm overwhelmed by the amount that Rekha has been able to achieve across policy, academia, and project work in her career, I at the same time feel the sisterhood of being somebody who's tried to do similar things in my own way. And I wanted to emphasize how distinctive Rekha's track record is. I noted, and all of my thoughts really have come from reading the introduction to this wonderful edited collection, which I'm looking forward to delving into much more. It was pointed out unbelievably that she has managed to supervise 72 MPhil and PhD students. And I'm rather amazed at my own record, which is far smaller than that. So congratulations, and what a wonderful feeling to be part of the journey of these people who will go forward. But of course, that supervision is based on the crucial area of knowledge production. And we are still at the very early stages of knowledge production about women, about their politics, about their priorities in the world we live in. And the young scholars that I am mentoring now are really putting an emphasis on getting women's knowledge and feminist perspectives and analysis out there to more people. And I'm very pleased to see that. But Rekha is a very early icon in that kind of work. Also, the numerous, I think it said 42 projects she's led in practice terms and policy terms, linking to areas such as women's rights and women's empowerment. So there's a breadth of work there. And all of those areas signal her interdisciplinarity, which, as she knows, is a major focus of my own through my work. And again, a model to all of us how we shouldn't live in our silos academically, and how the complexities of the world that we live in require us to be open to insights from other disciplines. So I think you can tell that I've both been very inspired by Rekha, but I've also I've felt her company as I've struggled in my own work and to aspire further. I've felt her company, even though she is very far away. And I think that's what many contributions to this meeting are stressing. I think most of us recognise that an academic environment remains a very privileged one, particularly in the commitments that many of us have to rights and greater equality in the world. And that's just as relevant in every single country I know of. And we all share that. Child poverty has increased enormously in Britain in recent years. And of course, the COVID pandemic has had dramatic effects, including economic effects, where we now have increasing numbers of families who just cannot survive on the income that they earn, despite doing multiple jobs. And so these historical shifts, which impact on women often, particularly because they carry their multiple burdens inside the home and outside the home, and offer the leadership in caring for the family and other people in constrained circumstances, are constantly facing new challenges. So it's interesting to see in the dynamism of the kind of professional trajectory that Rekha has, when we look across the work she's been doing historically, that in good ways and in slightly worrying ways, it's still as vital today as it was when she started doing it. So I think overall, there is a kind of hidden message in the inspiration that all of us are touching on in the work that someone like Rekha undertakes, and particularly the role of mentoring within that, which I've always found within a lot of my academic roles has been too much undervalued. And I think Padma was kind of signaling some of my thoughts about how the informal mentoring that just happens when it can happen, because we don't see one another and we're not involved very much, is valuable. And I'll share with you an example that's happened for me with Rekha. Recently, we were at a board meeting of International Feminist Journal of Politics, which I'll say a bit more about before I finish. We were at a board meeting, and a virtual board meeting like this, and we were all in little visual boxes as we are. And we were talking about the challenges the journal has in diversifying and including more scholars from across the world, including in India, but many other contexts within the journal's pages, including their work. And Rekha referred to work that we had done when we were co-editing the journal, where we would work in quite intricate and, we hope, sensitive ways with colleagues who wanted to be part of the journal in the early years when it was launching, to help them work through issues related to their contributions that could be improved and made suitable for the kind of journal that we were running, which wanted to be as open as possible, but obviously to work at strong academic trajectories. And she shared this, and she said that we were doing that, and we have been quite successful, we felt, in some of that. Then there was some ongoing conversation about what they'd been doing recently. Some of it had worked, some of it hadn't worked. But in a way, I sense that Rekha was hoping to use that board meeting to open up a bit of a conversation with a few contributions from other people And that didn't really happen. And for various reasons, the agenda drove everything, as these things do. But it reminded me of the richness. And it's a while now that Rekha and I were co-editing the journal, but it reminded me of the richness of the experience. And we were working closely with Kathleen Jones, a brilliant scholar from the US, absolutely astounding scholar from the US, who I'm still very close to. And we would have exchanges about these things. We would talk about these things. We would actively share perspectives on it. And as a learning experience, learning from each other and listening to each other. And for me, that is such a feminist way to work and a collaborative way to work, and the way I've always worked with colleagues generally of all kinds collaboratively. And it just reminded me that Rekha and I were on the same page, and it reminded me how challenging doing this kind of work can be when you really want to include new voices. And I'm now trying to do new work around partnership and trying to bring it within my own country, partners together to increase social enterprise work. And I've learned a lot about the challenges of that from my other collaborative work. And sorry?
Ma'am, you can continue. There is some kind of glitches coming from other person. You can continue your talk, ma'am.
Okay, I'm nearly finished anyway, Rizwan. So I was just sharing. It just took me right back, and I've been trying. I'm now trying, just so that Rekha knows, to try to have a conversation with the current editors of the journal to try to continue and refer to her points at the board meeting. And it's just reminding me how, as I find in my work generally, including with entrepreneurs, how crucial listening is. And I've found Rekha to be a brilliant listener. And I think some of what Rizwan was signaling and Padma was signaling, that it's not just about what you say. And I've found, as I've matured as a professional, both academically and other ways, and I say this to people, I spend much less time talking than I do listening now. I like to listen more and say less, and I find it more powerful. And I think Rekha is someone who honors that kind of ethic. And I have a feeling that's why we can carry her with us through our lives and through the work we do, because I absolutely share that sentiment. She's as alive today with me as she's ever been. I'm just tying up a new work that I didn't think I was going to do, because my work on digital economy, I think, has a lot of relevance to the new debates on AI. And I would like colleagues who are interested in feminist perspectives, because I know there won't be a lot of this material, to have some material. And I'm mainly inspired by thinking it will be useful in teaching and with students across the world in universities, particularly now that ebooks make that a lot more accessible. But it is the inspiration of colleagues like Rekha, who've gone far ahead of me in the volume of her achievements. Is phenomenal. I mean, I really do take my hat off to her in that area as a colleague, and the fact that she's indefatigable, that her energy appears unending, I think is an example to us all. So thank you for allowing me to share those thoughts with everyone. I hope some of them touch a meaningful point with people.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Youngs. It was nice hearing you. And it is very true, like, she is so much energetic, like still she is having that energy and zeal, which has make us moving ahead. On that note, I'll request Professor Dr. S. Jivanandam to introduce Professor Ann Dekner.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Ma'am,
Ma'am, please allow Dr. S. Jivanandam to introduce you. Ma'am, S. Jivanandam wanted to introduce you.
yes, ma'am, it's my pleasure to introduce you, ma'am. Dr. Ad Dentler is the head of the Social Studies Department at Franklin High School in Jersey City, New Jersey. She received her PhD from the University of Maryland, College Park, and holds BA and MA in English Literature from George Mason University. She taught at the college level for 17 years, and her research and teaching specialties were African American history and postmodern theories of representation and resistance. A former Fulbright scholar to India, Dr. Dunkler has also taught in Nepal, participated in a competitive seminar at Yale University, and internationally in fellowships in Senegal, India, Nepal, and Korea. She has published 2 books, both centered on Afro-American history in Valley region of Virginia. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me to speak at this wonderful event for you, Dr. Pande. I really can't think of a better way to honor a scholar than to have a book written in your honor. So thanks so much again. I first met Dr. Pande in the summer of 2010 when I was a Fulbright scholar to HCU. And I had been assigned another history professor as a mentor. And as it turns out, he was unable to kind of oversee my stay, and Dr. Pande very sweetly took over. It was not just me, as I'm sure she remembers. It was my 2 young sons, and it was our first visit to India. And so if it wasn't for Dr. Pande's hospitality and care, I think it was an overwhelming first couple of months. But once I sort of settled into the university and my kids got settled in, and thanks to Dr. Pande, we were very, very happy. She opened up her home and her family to us. So the boys and I were able to share in not just school life, but also in home life in India. And we'll be forever grateful for that. And even my boys now who are grown, one's out of college and one's in England in college, remember being at your house. I think they remember watching like frogs in your garden area. So there are certain things that they remember, and that's very meaningful to them. And over the years, we've remained friendly. And Dr. Pande even came out to Virginia to visit my university to give talks, which my students always remembered. And after her visit, I was able to teach a class in women in America and women in India regarding work. And there had not been another class like that at the university. So I'm hopeful that started, and it seemed to have before I left, the trend of more cross-cultural and international studies in my small school in Virginia. She also helped me, or really allowed me to publish a chapter in the book Gender and History in 2018. And in this work, I had the opportunity to offer my own research on African American women and their experiences in the history of post-Civil War USA, just sort of specifically in the state of Virginia. These women, whose lives had been upended by enslavement, were expected to live up to ideals and mythologies of white societal freedom, white feminine notions of female decency, motherhood, and perhaps most importantly, as tireless workers. Her devotion, Dr. Pande's devotion to subaltern studies, as well as I'm sure your own work, of those of you who are sitting with us today, encouraged me to write a second book, which is called Writing Freedom into Narratives of Racial Justice in Virginia's Shenandoah Valley. And just really briefly, you should say that area is rural, and it's about an hour from Washington, D.C. It's where I taught. There's research that's been done in that area, but it focuses almost solely on the Civil War, which was from 1861 to 1865 in the United States. There was a plethora of people who were enslaved. Their history has been understudied, underlooked, especially the history of women who were enslaved. And that's really the case throughout all of American history. Slavery becomes more of as a study, more of an institution as it's looked at and its political implications, its legacies for today, But when one breaks it down into stories, and I really did learn this from Dr. Pande, the personal narratives, especially of women, it becomes a whole different history, but a much, much richer history. It's still ongoing. So I really decided to focus on any primary source personal narratives I could find. And I was able to find them through networks such as court cases and not your traditional diaries or journals, because you're not going to find that with the subaltern study of African American women's history. That just doesn't really exist. But if you change your focus and look at, well, perhaps their accounts of lives through official documents, through the court cases, it's rich. And so that for me was something I learned from Dr. Pande and other female scholars, and really appreciate that. So coming face to face with women and their worlds and seeking that out is probably my most important mission in being a historian and a women's historian. And also, again, I'm learning that from Dr. Pande. So I would also argue too say that the legacy of enslavement can be compared to colonization. And I'm really interested in studying this more. And as it turns out, I will be in India because of Dr. Pande, and I'm starting a position as a professor in July at Washington University. So I will be on your side of, well, let's see which ocean. I will be on your side of the world actually next month. And I can't wait to start studying. And Dr. Pande and I've talked about this, lots of cross-cultural analysis in regards to history, gender studies, and feminist studies. There's just so much more to be done, and I can't wait for that. And really, finally, I think for me, I'm a researcher. I love doing that work, but I'm a teacher first and foremost. And I've always wanted to be a teacher. And I'm still happy to be a teacher. And my current job that I'll be leaving soon, I have students who are 15 years old and 16 years old. These are American students, boys and girls, young men and young women. And we did a unit on colonization and decolonization earlier this school year. And as we talked through, of course, we talked about India, and the thing that I remember so much about, I love my students, but the looks on their faces when we started to talk about gender and they're the ones who brought it out. And so I'll be talking more generally about world history and decolonization. And some of the young women would say, well, what were women doing in India at this time? What were the British women thinking when they had to visit a foreign land and they had no idea where they were? Their husbands were doing this. And that was them. And that was that curiosity that's there. And as Gillian said, and you can mentor that with even students who are that young. That's, I think, where change happens. So even on the other side of the world, we have to deal with the legacies of racism and sexism, misogyny, patriarchy. But when students start to see connections and want to figure out how these connections can be unearthed and then hopefully overcome, to me, that's the real value of being an amazing teacher and amazing student. So Dr. Pande, thank you so much for opening my eyes. I never thought I would be moving to Hyderabad at this point in my life. I'm so excited, but also the effect that you have on my students in the United States.
Thank you so much, Professor Dekner. And we are looking forward to welcome you here in the Hyderabad. At the same time, I am also planning to host you here in my university at VIT. So we'll see what are the things are going to be happen in the future. So let me allow this Professor Asivanandam to please introduce Professor Rajesh sir, who is the idea behind everything was put forward by Professor Rajesh sir only, and he is the key speaker or the key player in all this task. So I please ask Asivanandam to please introduce Rajesh sir.
Okay. Thank you, Rizwan. So it's our privilege to introduce Dr. M.N. Rajesh. So when we are talking, when we are thinking about Rajesh, sir, most probably, what can I say? He did not need much introduction because those who joined MA or MPhil PhD in the School of Social Science between 2000 to present, okay, everyone come across Dr. M.N. Rajesh. that whenever the students have some kind of a difficulties, so the first person one who appeared and also helped each and everyone without knowing their cultural and social background. Okay, it's my privilege, and also what can I say? It's our privilege that sir is served as an assistant professor, and his what can I say, academic services extended more than 23 years, and his expectations extend medieval history and cartography and Tibet and Himalayan studies, and also he is very short time he served in the Center for Women Studies in University of Hyderabad. And also it's my privilege to invite Dr. M. N. Rajesh sir to speak on this particular event. Thank you, sir.
Over to you, Rajesh sir.
Thank you, Dr. Jeevanandam, for the very kind introduction, but I'm not sure whether I'll be able to live up to the reputation. So I'm very happy to see a galaxy of scholars and also students, many familiar faces. So, Rekha Madam, I'm seeing you on the other side of the ocean, as Professor Anne Dekner put it. And we are very familiar with Professor Gillian Youngs and her work, and only rarely we have met her in Hyderabad, but her curriculum is a part of her university syllabus. And Professor Anne Denkler, I also met you many times. And in fact, my first PhD student, she had mentored and helped him, Malsam Dangliana, who is now in Mizoram. And he comes from a very different region of India, which is also part of India and shares links with the region of Burma, particularly the Chin region. And Professor Denkler was instrumental in going through his draft when he was in the University of Hyderabad, and also shuttling between her home and also balancing the courses, which she had introduced a very important course, the first of its kind in India and also in our university. And after that, the course has not been revived. And hopefully, when you're here in Hyderabad, we look forward to a few lectures on that particular topic. And as far as many of our students are concerned, I'm very happy to see that many of the students have now become faculty, and they're also stepping into the shoes of being a good teacher and also branching off into new areas of research. One of the major, what we call, set of interactions which we had with the students was, over the years we tried to understand the level of maturity and the processes through which they had gone, particularly Rekha Madam student, for the simple reason that unlike other students, we do not have any particular ideological straitjacketing. So Madam was very insistent that people should follow whatever they believe in, and that you marshal out only the evidence. The evidence is more important to me, and not the evidence in the traditional sense of the term. It is this particular idea which led us to also collaborate, and myself and Rekha Madam also had started a series of works, and she encouraged me to write a paper in her article. And in fact, I was very skeptical and thinking of writing it just as a blog post, the title of which was Virtual Tourism as a New Form of Oppression Against Women. So whether this topic of virtual tourism as a new form of oppression would in fact stand scrutiny, or would it be laughed at, was one concern in my mind. But Madam encouraged me to go and work on this topic. And similarly, another topic which I was interested on was how this new digital divide was bringing out an open movement. So an open movement is a period in which multiple options are possible, and some societies and countries seize this open movement. Whether gender balances can be restructured in this open movement was one question, because if society has to be reordered, then some restructuring has to be done. This was one aspect which other colleagues had disagreed, but Rekha Madam encouraged me. And there are also another topics on the traditional areas of history like cartography, and also we had a series of traditional maps of India and also other parts of Asia, in which the countries, the geobody of the country was being represented in different ways through various artistic techniques of representation belonging to the Jains first and then to the Buddhists, etc. In this, the feminist idea of the nation, not only India as Bharat Mata, but recently we had a South India, particularly Telugu Talli, means the mother of the Telugus. And now then, after the formation of Telangana, we had another statue of Telangana Talli, that is the mother of Telangana Telugus. So now a person was jokingly saying that I have three mothers, and mothers are being added. So how this was brought about into serious academic discussion is one area not only was it offbeat, but also it understood the new concerns. Like, say, for example, there are very few people in our university dealing with the idea of coloniality as propounded by Walter Mignolo. Many people even did not take this into account. But yes, we had some discomfort with postmodernism and as a slightly Eurocentric structure, and also Marxism as an internal critique of Eurocentric notions. But then, how do we contextualize these in South Asian societies? It was these endless discussions that also led us to explore some other theories. Some problems were also there with postmodernism, and right now we are trying to read some works of Walter Mignolo, and then these are the other works which are coming up. So, in this particular aspect, I think age is only a number, as has been proved by Rekha Madam. Not only is age a number, but also, if you see, the students are also a number, because there are more than double digit of students who have successfully cleared their MPhil and PhD, and they're settled in all parts of the country and the world. And particularly with this book, the proofreading which I had taken part in also was a learning experience to me. In fact, it was a learning experience in the sense that it was a very easy learning experience without any deadlines. So this whole idea of deadlines was not there, and then we had to interact with diverse set of audiences. Some papers were just 3 or 4 pages, then we had to ask them to write more pages, and then some we had to chop off, etc. So on the whole, it was a really good experience with a wide variety of scholars. And with these few words, I would like to end. But before that, I would like to convey a message from my college teacher who is unable to enter this Google Meet because of some technical problems. Professor G.J. Sudhakar, who was my teacher in the college and who is also the one of the secretaries in the Indian History Congress, and presently he is tipped to head the non-Indian history section. So he conveys his deep regards to Rekha Madam as a humane person and also as a scholar. Thank you, madam. And I thank all the audience.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. From entire our team, I am very much thankful Rajesh sir has spoken on our behalf. So it is a very special occasion for all of us. And now allow me to introduce all our speakers, those who have done their PhD under Professor Rekha Pande. And it is a very good thing to allow me means I should introduce the first person who has completed his PhD under Professor Rekha Pande. So his name is who is now serving as a professor at Annamalai University, Professor MC Raja. So over to you, sir.
Yeah, yes, thank you. Yeah, good evening to Unandal. Can you hear my voice? Can you?
Yeah,
Can you
yeah,
hear my
yes, sir.
voice?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir. We
yes,
can
sir.
hear your voice.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it gives me a great pleasure and honor to be